You're saying he was either the patsy or pulled the trigger, one of the two.
Yeah.
So who put him up to it?
What happens is intelligence, Mossad, FBI, CIA, what they do is they work in these Discord groups. And if you look at a lot of these school shooters or mass shooters, they come from these kind of Discord groups where they're speaking about these kind of far left or far extreme positions. And then what I believe is they go in these Discord groups and kind of brainwash them into doing these type of things. So someone like Tyler Robinson, they were into this kind of furry community. I believe that likely what's happening is Mossad is going into these groups and doing these.
We're going to talk now about the Charlie Kirk situation. You think that Israel had a hand in it, though you do think that Tyler Robinson did play a role in the hit, and you were kind of talking about Antifa.
Well, it's definitely Tyler Robinson was involved, right?
Okay. Just go from the beginning again. I'm sorry for that.
So no problem. So like in terms of, do you want the motive as well? Like why?
Sure, go through everything. Like you lay it out why you, how you think Israel was involved, who was the shooter, why they did it, you know, whatever you.
So in terms of why I think that they wanted to kill him was twofold. The main one, I think, is the war with Iran. Charlie Kirk was the only person who was against the war with Iran. From all of the Trump cabinet, whether it was Rubio, Hegseth, or Vance, they all supported the war with Iran. It was only Charlie Kirk who was against it. And he was basically like the administration, like you saw. As soon as he died, they almost gave him a burial. Not a burial in terms of when they carried the coffin and various other things, which was almost like someone who was a state representative. So he was very much considered part of the administration. He was the only person against it.
They flew the flag that have staff.
Exactly. And so he was the only person who against it. And so he stopped America joining the war, and that ended the war. And they know they need to go to war with Iran again. If Charlie Kirk is the only person who's going to stop that, they need to take him out, because it basically will mean that Israel will no longer exist. If it's a one war between Iran and Israel, Iran wins. Yeah. They need the US to get involved to take Iran out. And if they don't, and they allow Iran v. Israel, Israel will no longer exist. So your existence is on the line. Would you take out one man for that? Of course you would. And then in addition to that, he was tweeting that you saw the evidence was presented yesterday where he said he wanted to leave the pro-Israel position. Now, this could have been him threatening, but that's good. Like, look, no rich guy wants to be blackmailed or threatened, right? That still is like, look, he's getting too far. We need to take him out as well. So that's the second reason, or the second benefit why you would want to do it. So, but I still think the strongest one's Iran, because when you take him out, you lost all your followers anyway to Candace and Nick Fuentes, and you, right? So you guys basically took all them followers. So in reality, is it worth it? It's probably not, from a like keeping your base. That's why the war with Iran makes so much sense to me a lot more than, like, you know, the followers or his position or losing the youth.
So you think the war in Iran is what really got him jammed up because of his opposition to the war?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you think that if someone was to play devil's advocate and say, Frank, go to your bed, and someone were to say, well, you know, is it worth murdering an American citizen on U.S. soil that may or may not turn on us overtly and, you know, challenge our position on this Iran war? Is that worth doing an intelligence operation on stateside and risking, you know, diplomacy or the relationship?
They killed JFK for less.
I mean, you can make the argument JFK was because of nuclear weapons, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But nuclear weapons is their protection, a protection for the state.
Yeah.
The state doesn't exist. The nuclear weapons become irrelevant.
Of course.
So this is about the existence of the state.
Okay.
So I would say the motive on this one is even more than JFK.
I'm going to war with Iran and being able to wage this war with American support. Is that important?
So important. They can't do it without America.
They can't. Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. They really can't.
And he was the only one stopping it. And I do think that now America will probably join the war.
I'm trying to remember here if he was super overt with his anti-war sentiment before he passed away.
He wasn't.
I know. Yeah, I was gonna say. I know. Like there was like murmurs of him because I remember. If you remember, the United States. You know what? Let's go on his Twitter. I'll show you.
He did a poll. Yeah.
He did a bunch of polls on this shit to see where his audience stood, and I remember this. You know, and RIP to Charlie Kirk. You guys know I disagree with him on the whole Israel thing and everything else like that. But you know, I think he was more of a positive. But let me show you guys real quick here because he was doing these polls. Bam. Here we go. So he was doing polls like this. Look, June 12th. And should the U.S. get involved in Israel's war against Iran? And then this is him talking about the conflict or whatever. But he was doing a couple of these different polls, guys, asking about the war, where American sentiment was, whatever, getting a barometer. And overwhelmingly, people were anti-war, right? Which is a big contrast from the neocon era of 20 years ago, where everybody was for the Iraq war, right? Or a majority of people were for the Iraq war. You could see that he was having a battle, I guess. And I do think, you know, there were some times where he would say, hey, I don't want a war or whatever. But he wasn't like super anti-war yet.
He never counter-signaled Trump, isn't it? That was always his point. Like, he always would defend what Trump did, even if he disagreed with it privately. Yeah. But generally speaking, you saw like there was a video where he said he didn't want a war with Iran, and he said he didn't want regime change. So like all of these things were problematic for the Israeli regime. Yeah. From a motive perspective.
So you think the motive is not necessarily turning on Israel as much as him being a barrier in the way to get U.S. approval to join in the conflict with Iran?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how do you think it went down then? So explain to us, what do you think Tyler Robinson's role was?
Yeah.
And how that plays into the Israelis.
So obviously I disagree.
So you have a motive.
Yeah, I disagree with all these cookie theories, like, for example, that there was drones, or that there was the pager attack, or the fact that, there's other, the security guards were doing signals. I think that's an intelligence operation. And the reason they do that is that you don't question the legitimate stories. You almost sound like these kooky flat earthers. And this is intelligence do that all the time, so that you're not basically willing to question the real narrative. But in terms of Tyler Robinson, so there's two possibilities, and I'm 50-50. But I do think Tyler Robinson was involved, but was he the shooter? So 100% Tyler Robinson was involved, but 50% whether he was a shooter or not. In terms of him being involved, that's happened because Trans-Tifa, which is the trans-Antifa.
That's where we left off before, if you could explain that to them.
Is basically the modern iteration of that is controlled by Israel. And basically how they control it is financially. They support it through their networks. And what they also do is they'll send agitators into certain protests, whether it's pro-Palestinian or pro-left or whatever it may be, to cause issues within that protest as well. So this is something that Israel does. Tyler Robinson's boyfriend/girlfriend.
Yep, the guy that was transitioning.
From one of the researchers I spoke to says that he was pro-Israel. Lance Briggs or Lance Diggs or whatever the person. Yeah. And
then what was Tyler? Was he pro-Israel or was he pro? I'm assuming most people on the left are pro-Palestine.
So they add that because this group is a weird trans-Antifa group, which is like more pro-Israel. If I had to guess, I'd say he was pro-Israel.
Okay. So how does he play in your
Because
opinion?
remember, his family is a Mormon family.
Yes.
And Mormons are basically
They're conservatives.
Jews, basically like Jews, bro. Yeah, I know I'm not allowed to say it. I know might get us cancelled, but like Mormons are like worship Jews. And I know the Christians, but
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Mormon community, and that's why I always have question marks about a lot of Mormons, I'll be honest with you. But the Mormon community have a long history in intelligence. CIA, FBI, and Mossad.
Well, they don't do drugs. They're very clean.
They don't, yeah.
They don't do drugs. They don't drink caffeine.
Yeah.
FBI has a lot of FBI. A lot of people don't know. FBI has a lot of Mormon agents. Yeah. Lots.
That's such a long history of FBI, CIA, and
that is true.
And
lots of Mormon agents because they don't do drugs, they don't do nothing.
Yeah.
So
and Mossad.
Yeah.
And so so I'm just demonstrating all the links, right?
Yeah.
And so in terms of there's a lot of motive that he would be the shooter because Israel will get into the Discord and cause these trans-Tifa far left Discords and try and manipulate people into doing certain things. So I think there is something going on there. Obviously, we know the conversation was fake between the two lovers, right? And so the only thing that stands against the point that whether he was the shooter for me is because he's there on the roof.
It's weird that the FBI didn't release the footage of him in the prone position shooting.
But the charging document says they've got it.
Okay, they do have. Why did they show it to us?
I don't know why they.
That's something I didn't like. Like I was like, dude, just show. Like you already have him running across the roof. Like show everything from him in the prone position shooting because they said that he was in the prone position for only a minute or two.
Yeah, so they claim in the charging document they've got a video of him in the prone position. But remember, the video's from the back, so you won't be able to see the gun. But this is the claim. I'm just telling you what the charging document says. So that shows that there is a possibility he was just shooter. He was running with it. He had the gun and he was wrapped in a towel. That you can see once you slow it down. So there is a high likelihood he's the shooter. The thing that goes against it is the 3006, right?
Yeah. That's what they're claiming.
Because by speaking to a lot of people who are experts on this and who have had on spaces, they say that wound does not look like it's from a 3006.
Yeah, because it would have blew his head off is what they're saying.
The claim, and more likely this looks like an exit wound. And the claim is that because basically 3006 couldn't do this, and there should be an exit wound, and there's no exit wound.
Yeah.
Now the claim is that the angle that he was shooting from wouldn't cause it. But if you look at the angle, we did the maths on it. It's not that much degrees. It's like 4-degree angle. That wouldn't be that much of that's quite an acute angle. I don't think that would cause the bullet to go down. And this video is decent as well.
Which one do you want to see? Which one do you think is the best?
I've seen the one above.
This one?
Yeah, and he shows it goes.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you.
Here, I'll play it after you're done.
He shows it goes through the gel and then goes into the water and stopped by the water. And then the second one, it goes through flesh, meat, bone, thick bone, and then another piece of flesh, and then it goes straight through all of them.
Okay. All right, let me.
The controversy surrounding the ballistics of the 30-06. So there are thousands of people out there right now, including very popular creators with large followings, who are convinced that the damage sustained from the shot was not consistent with the 30-06. They think it should have been way more severe. I'm not here to say yes or no. I just thought we would test the caliber for ourselves and find out in real time.
And didn't the surgeon say something like his bones stopped the bullet from going further, which is crazy?
Well, the thing is, first of all, they claimed there was no autopsy, and now we find out there's an autopsy.
Yeah, they haven't released the autopsy report either, right?
No, but that's normal. Like it takes 4 to 6.
To release the autopsy.
Yeah.
Even though it's complete.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you're referring to is Andrew Kovlak,
his right hand guy.
Yeah, of TP USA. He said that he spoke to the surgeon, and the surgeon said that basically Charlie Kirk is made of steel, and it was a miracle, and that's the reason the bullet didn't penetrate.
Yeah, that made people say, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like they lost a lot of
Get started. Okay, so like I said, one of the big theories I'm seeing online is people are not buying the damage sustained to be consistent with that of a 30-06, and there's a couple things you have to understand when a bullet travels through a target, especially a high-velocity rifle round like the 30-06. There's basically two things happening simultaneously. First, you have the permanent wound cavity, which is the damage caused by the actual bullet itself. Then you have the temporary wound cavity, which is caused by the velocity, impact, and the energy transfer of the round. It's like a shockwave of energy traveling through the target that only lasts a second. It's really only visible in ballistic gel on high-speed cameras, but it basically just looks like a big bubble expanding inside the target. And this is why targets like watermelons, for instance, basically turn into vapor when we shoot them with rifles. But animals and humans with a lot more weight, mass, tissue, etc., are going to do a much better job at containing that energy. So internally, there could be a massive area affected by the bullet, while externally, you only see a tiny little hole. Hopefully, this kind of clarifies it for the people that thought that the damage should have been far more catastrophic. That's typically not how it works when people get shot. So today, we're going to shoot a few different targets with the 30-06 and find out for ourselves how much damage this rifle round actually does. All right, guys, the first target we're going to shoot with the 30-06 is a 10% clear ballistic shell block. I'm hoping that this will show us both the permanent and temporary wound cavity so we can see the difference. I've also got some water jugs behind it, kind of scattered off to the side just in case the bullet passes all the way through or takes a sharp turn in the gel. This should also probably show us how unpredictable high velocity rifle rounds can be. Now, I was going to start with a watermelon just to show you how crazy those are, but we literally just shot one in our last Charlie Kirk video with a 308 at 142 yards, which is the exact distance he was shot from. So I'll probably just play that video now and you can see how dramatic it was.
Oh shit.
Smokes the watermelon. So again, I think videos like that have kind of given people the wrong impression.
Fucking exploded, dude.
And if they're inexperienced, they think that's what bullets do in real life. And obviously, that's not the case. I'm hoping this will help prove that point as well. All right, guys, the rifle we're using is the 1903 Springfield 30-06 from BFF Firearms. We've got our 150 grain full metal jacket, probably the most common 30-06 ammo there is. The problem is we don't know what kind of ammo this guy used. They typically don't go with super high-tech rounds. So this is a pretty good guess, but we just don't know for sure. Let's see what this one does. I'm gonna try to put it right in the middle of our gel block.
Wow.
Okay, well, that was actually more dramatic than I thought it would be. Our ballistic shell got yeeted off the table, and it looks like we have a hole in our 5-gallon water jug, so hopefully we captured that bullet. Okay, I tried to clean off the ballistic shell block since it fell onto the ground after it was shot. You can definitely see the temporary wound cavity on the high-speed footage. So I'll play that for you guys. And that is the permanent wound cavity inside the ballistic shell block. So that's the actual damage that the bullet did inside the ballistic shell. And even for a rifle round, that is a massive wound cavity in a ballistic shell block. I've got to say, this thing outperformed what I thought it would do. You can see for the first, I don't know, 6 or 7 inches, it's just a very small hole where the bullet is penetrating. And then about halfway through, it started dumping most of its energy in that ballistic shell block. We have one bullet fragment that I see right there, probably 2 inches from the end of the ballistic shell, and it did curve down. The block is flipped, you know, compared to what it was when we shot it. So the bullet curved down, exited out towards the bottom, and it did enter our 5-gallon water jug. And there it is, right there.
Now that we kind of see what the damage is with with this gun, so what are your thoughts? I guess as far as like, so you think that he was the shooter?
Yeah.
But the thing is that do you not buy the 30-06? Do you think you shot him with another gun? Do you think the weapon?
Oh no, so I know he was definitely involved, but whether he was a shooter or not, I'm 50-50 about. This is what makes me think that it wasn't him, because for it to not
they claim those 30-06.
Yeah,
and the damage obviously is not indicative of that.
Exactly. But in terms of it not being him, so thing is, if it's not him, it means that the guy who's doing the autopsy is lying. It means Charlie Kirk's lying. It means everyone's in on it, right? Because you will see the wound somewhere else. So what I mean by that, the other possible theory, which I think is also likely, is that he was shot from behind by a smaller caliber weapon. And by the way, these are not my theories. I'm not an expert on guns. I'm from the UK. Yeah. This is just experts who come on MySpace and made a very strong and cogent argument and then provided the evidence to me. And so what they say is that he was shot close to the ear. The entry wound would be extremely tiny, but the exit wound would be that large.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that is quite plausible as well. And so that's why I'm 50-50, because I think the weakness of this one is everyone has to be in on it. And the weakness of this is the 30-06 clearly just doesn't normally cause that kind of damage that we saw. So I think those are the kind of points, but I think it's one of those two. But definitely Tally Riley Robinson either was the patsy up there or he shot. So he was definitely involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just so we can bring this all together, because obviously we're analyzing evidence and everything.
Yeah.
So just so I make sure I have this right. So your theory is you think Israel was involved with killing him, with assassinating him, because he posed a threat, not so much to influence in the United States and, well, his influence in the United States and him pulling those people from supporting Israel, rather his opposition to the Iran war.
Yeah.
Is what you think got him jammed up. And the fact that he was starting to deviate away from the Israel lobby might have been too much of a problem for them when it comes to them needing support to fight the Iranians, which is true, because we know that if the United States had not intervened and ended that conflict with bombing Fordo and everything else like that, I do think that the Iranians would have destroyed Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Because obviously more and more missiles are starting to get in day by day, contrary to what the Western media says, in a war of attrition, because obviously interceptor missiles, just if you do the math, the interceptor missiles, they don't have enough interceptor missiles to deal with Iran's huge fucking stockpile of missiles and drones. They just don't. So you're saying Israel needs U.S. backing to fight a war against Iran. Charlie stood in the way of that. We obviously have the Twitter post here with him, gauging the interest of his audience in the war. Obviously, they're saying no. He leaned more against the war, and they felt as though if he was going to turn his back on the Israel lobby, that would also mean turning his back on the war, which would hurt their ability.
And even if he didn't turn his back on the Israel lobby, if Israel went to war with Iran, he might counter-signal them, or he's likely to counter-signal them and stop America's getting involved in the war with Iran. If America doesn't get involved in the war in Iran, Israel no longer exists.
So do you think that he had a death sentence as soon as he went to the White House and told Trump that we don't want this war?
Yeah.
You think that fucked him up?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's an interesting theory. I mean, I can see you have motive, you have possibility of how it was done. I mean, you're still you're saying he was either the patsy or pulled the trigger, one of the two.
Yeah.
So you do think that. So what would Tyler Robinson's, I guess, what would his motive be to do that? And then did he know that he was working for the Israeli government, presumably in this?
I don't think so.
So who put him up to it in your
I think
theory?
that what happens is, intelligence, and this is going to be like any intelligence, Mossad, FBI, CIA. I think in this case it was Mossad. What they do is they work in these Discord groups. And if you look at a lot of these school shooters or mass shooters or these extremists, they come from these kind of Discord groups where they're speaking about these kind of far left or far extreme positions, or they believe in this kind of the gaming a lot. And then what I believe is that what happens is they go in these Discord groups and kind of brainwash them into doing these type of things. So someone like Tyler Robinson, they were into this kind of furry community. The entire belief system was really weird because he was Mormon. He was like part of Transtifa, and then they were pro-Israel as well. When he brought all of that together, it's kind of some weird...
This group that he's a part of is pro-Israel.
Yeah, it's kind of some weird ideology. And so what that tells me is that I believe that likely what's happening is Mossad is going into these groups and grooming people.
So we know, I guess, who the puppeteer is, the puppet master. But what was in Robinson's head, assuming he was a shooter? Did he go in there and say, I'm going to shoot Kirk because I don't like his politics when it comes to his criticisms of the T community? What was his motive for potentially getting involved in this?
I think it's likely, that.
Okay, so you think domestic political policy or belief systems with Charlie Kirk is why
and
Robinson
again, I'm not
did what he
100%
did?
on that.
Okay.
And so I'm saying that's likely, and that's the normal narrative.
Okay.
I think there's a big possibility that all of that's fake.
Okay.
And he's a Mormon, and he's part of intelligence.
Okay, so you don't really know. So the motive can, his knowledge of the operation can vary.
Because if you know the history of the Mormons, right? I know this sounds like, I know people are going to get upset what I'm saying, but as someone who's looked into it.
No, it's fine. Give your theory, man. I'm listening.
Yeah, it has a decent amount of history. You see that even from the 1865, or is it, I don't know what year it was I was looking into, the Mormons have been involved in intelligence. If you look at it, for example, the Mormon community is very big in Utah. They got
huge
Mount Zion there. Mm-hmm. They're very much considered like Jews. They believe that their role is to support Jews in Israel.
Okay.
And so when you put all of those things together, you put Mossad, I think there is a decent possibility that he was never even trans, and this was just an intelligence operation, and he was actually an asset himself.
Okay. For U.S. or Israeli intelligence?
For Israel.
And they just told him, hey, go in there and shoot this guy. And then you're gonna take the fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying that's a minor possibility. I think the more likely is. So again, it's like percentages, isn't it? And I'm not trying to not do it. It's just that there's no, I'm not stupid enough to just say this is it when we haven't got enough information or evidence. Likely he just was angry with Charlie Kirk because the transgender. But I'm saying this is a possibility. Just keep that in your mind because that option's there.
Okay.
And it's likely.